Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner, AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. So hello and welcome to Urbanistica Podcast, Christian.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm so honored.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Lots of fun stuff going on. So
Yeah, a lot of projects.
yeah, a lot of projects. Just starting a new collaboration with an American company today. So I'm a bit excited about that. And I have some other sponsorship deals that I'm working on with the podcast and an event coming up. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, life is good. So how many podcast episodes do you record every week?
I try to release 2 episodes. So
Per week?
Yeah. So
And
something like that.
And do you also record like 2 per week or 2 to 3?
Something like that.
Yeah. I love your podcast, and I'm very happy that you're here, and we're going to talk about your journey and also about the future. So we start with you. You're our storyteller. How would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, I'm sort of freelance media producer in a way. Been doing that since 2005. In a way, I've always been producing content and journalism, and during the past 5 years, I have dived into the world of podcasting with my podcast Heja Framtiden, which is a sort of future optimistic platform where I meet people, as you said, 2 times a week, and I try to sort of build a media ecosystem from there.
Yeah.
So from the podcast, it's been there's been lectures and workshops, and been producing 4 magazines within the food tech system. I have written 2 books, and I now started a own book publishing house within the Heja Framtiden context.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you have like a special focus on one area, let's say on food or I don't know, digital industry?
I think it would have been smart to narrow it down and focus on one area in the beginning. But I kind of like that it's a bit blurry, that it can take so many directions. I can talk to someone about equality and inclusion in one episode. I can talk about AI and blockchain, urban planning, and everything in between. So I think now, after 420 something episodes, I think that people are realizing that it's not well, things are not black or white.
True.
It's very complex, and
Yeah.
that's what I try to illustrate by
Yeah.
different perspectives, and from all these different voices and perspectives, I can build somewhat interesting map for the future in a way.
But why you started the podcast about the future? Like what was the background?
I've always been interested in trends and visionary people, if they are entrepreneurs or artists or investors or musicians. But I think I realized that this was a platform that was lacking, at
Okay.
least in Sweden. I didn't see anyone producing content with the future in mind in different kind of topics. There were some magazines writing about tech, some about society.
Very niche.
Yeah. And I wanted to break those silos and just throw everything in the same pond in a way.
Yeah.
So there's a market opportunity. There's also a quest for finding meaning and purpose in what I'm doing. I was doing lots of commercial work back then, so I really needed to have a project that was my own and that was sort of contributing to something greater.
Yeah,
that's really important. And thirdly, I think there was a way of resisting the doomsday narrative of the media at the time and of all times, basically. But this was around 2016-17 when I started having the idea, and that was around the immigration crisis in Sweden.
Yeah.
Many people are talking about how the systems were collapsing and everything was going to hell, and that's why the right-wing parties were doing better and better. So me and the co-founders, I had two co-founders then for a few months, and one mission was to sort of break that narrative and say, like, look at all these wonderful things that humanity is creating. Look at progress. Look at science. We're doing better than ever in many ways.
Yeah. And what kind of like project that you were work on parallel with the podcasting? Because like now what I'm love to explore with you is like you have your job, and on the side you start a podcast. Many people thinking about starting podcasts and they are a bit afraid, like, should I leave my job to start a podcast or no? Can I like do both or and so on? So we're gonna, I think, explore that during our talk. So what are the projects you were working on?
I've always been working as a freelance journalist, content producer, copywriter, web developer, graphic designer, all those kinds of stuff. And I think when I started the podcast, I was doing more like native advertising and content marketing kind of texts. So that's why I was yearning for something more meaningful.
Yeah.
But I've been editor in chief for travel industry magazines and leisure magazines. I've been running blogs, one travel blog, one music blog, one ice cream blog. But no, I don't think you should quit your day job and start a podcast. That's the short answer. I think it's a perfect side gig. And I think if you're looking for fast cash and recognition and fame, I don't think you should start a podcast. I think this is really for the long run.
Yeah. But is it like distracting, or you lose focus when you work on so many different small projects within different fields?
Well, now I'm sort of aiming at putting more of my skills and my clients in the Heja Framtiden context. So it could be a podcast episode. I could write articles for the client. We could do sponsored segments. I can do an event, lecture. I can moderate panel discussions. I can do a magazine, a book. So I don't see it as competing interests. I see it as different expressions of the same sort of ideology. And for me, it's not very difficult to keep focus because all these things are, they are my passion project. And now I can add my other competencies into the passion project.
Yeah.
So and it also turns out that my other assignments within copywriting, etc., they are more leaning towards future and sustainability as well. So
So for you have your focus because like all of these different projects leads to the like a sustainable future or related to future topics somehow.
Yeah, I try to keep it that way at least.
Yeah, because maybe like some people think that having so many different small projects like difficult, you lose focus because you need this
flow, and how can you change your flow from one to another project, and so on. So maybe it's better to stick to only one big project and that's it. But this is not your
Well,
case.
I've always been restless, and I like to try different things. And I didn't need to start a publishing house releasing books, but I realized that I could do that. I can, create the cover. I could create a layout, and I can use your text, and I can have it printed and distributed
Yeah.
within 1 month or 2 months.
Yeah.
So why not use that skill? I'm not going to be a millionaire from that, but it's a fun way to expand the ecosystem and
Yeah.
get even more new thoughts out
Exactly.
into the society.
Yeah.
So I see. I don't see it as I'm not focused. I see it as I'm working on with different tools for the same purpose.
Yeah, for the same mission.
Yeah.
Exactly. Is it good for your like personal brand, for your like company, that you are also on the different levels and the different projects with different clients, or no? More from like business wise, let's say.
I think it's good. It gives me an opportunity to be seen and to meet new people. I mean, that's to be honest, that's the reason for having so many guests and producing so many episodes, because I get to meet even more people.
Yeah, you increase your chance to meet more people and then maybe do more projects.
Yeah, because everyone leaving my studio is now a part of my network and my.
True.
We want to help each other in a way.
Yeah.
So that's also a part of podcasting that I think is often neglected. The immense luck and privilege that we have as podcasters to invite people into our sphere.
Yeah.
And they lose their guard, and they want to help us. They want to tell us everything they know. So there's a really win-win in this.
Exactly. And this is what I realized with like me doing Urbanistica podcast. I invite different people from different like stakeholders and so on. And this kind of network, it's so much more bigger compared to what I had before starting the podcast. And also like this putting in touch different people, like it's not about only me as a host and my guest doing a project, but it's also like, oh, maybe you, Adam, do a project with Sarah because you work in the same field. Maybe you, Christian, talk with Sophia because you also like have kind of similar ideas, and maybe you can start something together.
Yeah.
So I think this like a networking output of podcast it's very valuable.
Yeah, and I mean the best feeling is when I hear someone say, "Oh yeah, I listened to that episode and it sounded interesting." So I dropped her an email and we had lunch. I'm like, "What? Really?" And especially if there are two different guests on different topics.
Yeah,
and they're like they found each other through me.
Yeah. It's usually det är helt okej. Den spelar vi. The coolest thing for me when a student writes me and tell me that I listened to this episode and I'm doing my thesis about it.
Oh wow!
And I took contact with the guest. I became so happy.
Yeah.
Did you had like also some cool stories or interesting stories from listeners telling you?
Well, I had one teacher saying that she used my content, both books and podcasts, in her lectures and in her education for sustainability students. So, I mean, that's really a great receipt that what I'm doing is valuable to someone.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, podcasting is very difficult to get engagement. It's difficult to get feedback. You don't know who's listening, really. So when people actually manage to give you feedback and to drop you an email, that's really, really encouraging.
It's also like maybe in the US or other countries, they already started with podcasts for a long time ago. Yes, here in Sweden, we still like, we are listening, but not used to. We still have like people not really listening or have no idea about what is a podcast.
Yeah.
But I think it's growing now.
That's why I also think we shouldn't look at other podcasts as competitors. I think we should look at as the more people we can get into podcasting and listening to podcasts and working with podcasts, I think that's even better for the ecosystem to evolve.
I think so, because like we need more voices. Let's say it's not only enough with your voice or my voice. We always need different people from different perspective, from different background, because like we all a part of this society. It's not only me presenting the society or as an ambassador for all the society. We need more people, and as you mentioned, we need to like include the others and invite the others to speak in other podcasts as well, like build this kind of podcast community as well.
Yeah, and I think what's funny with inviting experts is that they are experts in maybe one topic. So an AI experts will claim that AI is the most important technology of the century, and the blockchain guy will say the same thing about blockchain. So and all these they're not right or wrong. It's just that it's their perspective.
Exactly.
But I get to be a filter that can sort of see the grayscale between them.
Yeah.
So I think that's also really important. We need like curators to present different voices, but also maybe combine them into insights.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to gather the confidence to do. I don't see myself as a futurist, but I do realize that I have opinions now. After 5 years, I have my own visions
also,
and I don't want to predict the future like the traditional futurist maybe, but I want to encourage several possible futures that we can strive towards.
And this is what I love with your podcast. Like you bring different people from different backgrounds with different expertise. And then after listening to different episodes, you start to get an image of how future can look like. And what I love also, like you put your own touch in each episode with so much like you're humble. You don't say like, okay, this is it and so on. So before we start to talk about the future and how do you imagine it, tell me about like the beginning of the podcast, how you started, the tools and so on. Many people are interested. Maybe they have ideas, but maybe they see that like this technical part, it's very big barrier and they have no expertise in it. So how did you start it?
Well, as I said, I was walking around with this idea. I became sort of obsessed with it. You know, like I have to collect all these interesting because I was interviewing people already
for your other projects.
For blogs or magazines or articles, and I realized that what if I recorded this and put it on one platform? And the podcasting was sort of taking off back then, 15, 16, 17. So I started thinking about this. What should I call it? You know, what guests could I have? What's the tonality? And I started talking to people. I started saying to everyone, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a podcast about the future. And I sort of, I always do that. You know, when I get obsessed with something, I talk to people about it and see their reaction.
Yeah. How was their reaction?
Well, most people were like, "Wow, that sounds really cool. I'll listen to that."
Okay, but like more in a serious way, or no? Just okay, good for you. Started. if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I think I was encouraged enough to continue with the obsession at least. Then I mean, it wouldn't really have mattered. When I become obsessed with something, it's
you just do
difficult to to stop me. But yeah, so I talked about it, and I met a woman called Edith, which I recently was a guest on her podcast, Edith Künstlersche, and she said, "Well, you should talk to this guy. He's doing podcasts." And so I looked him up, and he had already started now. Apart from doing podcasts and producing podcasts, he had started a Facebook page called Heja Framtiden.
Wow.
which means basically cheer the future, go future.
Yeah.
Because he was sick about the doom and gloom, and he wanted to present, positive news and progress and science on Facebook.
Yeah.
And he already had like 700-800 fans or subscribers. So I wrote to him and said, let's get a coffee. Let's add a podcast to your concept, because you already
have a page, you produce content and share content with him.
Well, he was just producing. He was just like putting out articles or links.
Yeah, sharing.
Yeah,
and you told him like maybe we add the podcast element to what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I've been thinking about. That's what I want to do. And he said, yeah, sure. So a friend of his created the logo. Another friend created the jingle, the song, and another guy called Tobias Wahlqvist. He had some equipment. He said, "Well, I can record." So he brought two mics like this and a Zoom recorder, and we started doing it like 4 or 5 episodes, and it was really, really planned. It was meticulously, scripted, and the edit was really detailed, and everything was really important. When you start something new, it feels like
exactly
this is the most important thing ever.
Yeah.
And I started writing these manifestos, and I sent out sponsorship proposals, and soon realized that the world didn't stop with the first episode of my podcast. Most people were like, "Oh yeah, good, cool.
Yeah.
And, so after a few months, they said that we can't do this for free anymore. You have to go do it on your own. So so that's when I started learning how to edit myself.
Okay.
And I bought the equipment from Tobias, and I got a barter deal with a co-working place, had a studio, so I could record for free in their studio. So that's when I started, rolling, and could do it as fast as I wanted.
So is it rocket science to start and record and edit?
No, definitely not. I mean, you need to invest a couple of thousand kroners in mics and a Zoom recorder. But apart from that, I mean, the editing program is free, and I took a few hours to learn.
Yeah.
So
there is a lot on YouTube as well, like compared to 2017. Now, so much content about how you start your podcast, which mic you can buy for a good but low budget, and how you edit and so on. So now it's like a lot of help on YouTube.
Yeah, and I think many people get stuck in this
technical part. Yeah,
because they're so they think it's so important which brand you choose, and how can I edit the files after I record them? How can I export the recording, the edited recording, into another file to master it? And, I mean, there's a lot of small steps that you need to learn, but it's not complicated.
Exactly. Last week, I was lecturing in KTH at the university. They have a course, and course director, she listened to a podcast, and she have an idea that the students should do their final submission as an audio file, not as a PDF. So she invited me and told me, please, can you explain how do we do that? So I told them it's like really not a rocket science. Like it's maybe they are, let's say, 10 steps or 5 steps, but each one of them are not like so difficult, and it's very simple, very easy. It's just that like you mentally need to understand it's not complicated as how you think. As soon as you do it, then you will like keep going and doing it.
Yeah, because I thought I needed an editor. I was like, I have to find money to pay someone to edit my shows. And then after a few weeks, I was like, okay, let's look into this. How is it done? It's like, oh, is it this simple? Wow. And I think the main problem for many people and companies, because I mean, I also get approached by companies wanting to start their podcast, is that do you have a couple of 100 episodes in you, or do you have like 10 episodes in you? Because many people are like, yeah, I think it would be fun, and they don't really have a long-term plan. You have like
just
10,
for
20 episodes,
Yeah.
and then someone quits the job or someone gets sick.
or
and-
maybe they just lose. They don't see it. It's interesting anymore. Yesterday, I listened to a YouTuber, and he mentioned like there is a statistic about that. I don't know how many percent, but like I think 80 or something. Not sure about this, but it's very high percentage that people doing only 7 episodes of podcast, then they just stop.
Yeah.
Not sure if it was 80 or 99%.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming majority of the podcast.
So he said, like, what's the point if you just like, if it is like a series about, let's say, food, then it's fine if you have just limited number of, because you want to discuss a specific topic and that's it. But if you want to start a podcast, like you should really keep going, because people, like, you're building this community, you're building up the story, and people waiting for you, like every Monday or every Friday, so on. So it's really important, like, you continue doing it.
Yeah, and I think I like the fact that podcasting comes from a sort of grassroots movement, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly.
No one cares. You know,
Yeah.
the sound quality. I mean, it needs to be good because
This is
otherwise,
what you sell. Like, this is what you.
yeah, but it's like you can add weeks of editing for one episode, and insert sound bites and talk to people on the street and create a really interesting
music and background. Music, and
it would be probably great, but you don't have the time to do that for 400 episodes,
right?
So maybe you should consider doing it in an easier way.
Exactly, just so you can also be like sustainable and just record, because the value in the conversation.
Yeah.
And then of course you need to have a good audio, because it's a podcast, but it's very fine with like a little bit noisy, or how to say, like, you don't need maybe a start music, like or in the middle have something in between, like a pause and so on. Just like put the conversation, and that's it.
Yeah. Where I record now is that's an old.
What's the format you have? Like music, then you say hello, or
I have a short intro, a quote from the guest, then the music fades into my intro. But nowadays, I don't even bother to record an intro. I just start. Welcome to Heja Framtiden, the podcast about the future. And now I'm sitting here with Mustafa.
Yeah.
And so we get going.
Yeah.
Because every step that I can remove is
it's like more time to do other, or to focus maybe on the conversation, or do other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Do you or I have a question here, is about like why podcasts from people, like from a person, individual, are much popular than a podcast from an organization.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it has to do with where it comes from. I mean, how it started, and you subscribe to the person. You become loyal to the person running the podcast. You become a friend, really. So you get to long for the next episode all the time, even if you don't know exactly what it's going to be. It's like it's a very intimate relationship, really. And I've met people that recognized me from my voice.
Wow!
At an event.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I as I mentioned, we don't really know who's listening, and you don't know why they're listening or how they're listening
exactly,
or how often they're listening. But some people are really, really loyal, and they can't stop.
Yeah.
And I'm the same with some podcasts. It's difficult to stop because you get to know the people, even if you don't agree with everything or like everything every episode. That's just part of your routine.
Exactly.
And I think when companies start podcasts, it's very tempting to do it from your own perspective all the time and say like, we are amazing here at A-Free.
A lot of selling.
Yeah, I think so. So you have to step out of it and see like what kind of content can we create. I mean, like you're doing here. It's not about AFRY.
No, not really.
I mean, in a subconscious and in one way, AFRY is always a part of it.
Of course, they support me. They believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned and
Exactly
in
in the intro.
maybe sometimes
We're here in the office as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but it's not. It wouldn't be interesting if you were always talking about how amazing AFRY is.
that's true.
So I think that's. I mean, that's what I've been doing with like content marketing, stuff like that. Create interesting content that is valuable to a consumer or listener.
Yeah.
Without even mentioning your own brand or product.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part because most companies are very keen on
Exactly,
inserting that.
because also like they pay money, so they have the mindset of, if I am paying, I need to see my name somewhere, you know. Or
Yeah.
you need also always to talk good stuff about me. I think it was very interesting here at AFRY, the AFRY story, because they were very clear in that this podcast is not AFRY podcast. It's like your Urbanistica, Mustafa's podcast, and no selling. Like AFRY is this and this and this. We have something called like lead by example as one of our values, and it's that you talk about like what you produce instead of telling like, oh, we are this and this and this. Like just talk about what actions you do.
Yeah.
And then that's it. You don't need to brag so much, because actions will show what you are. So this is what I like here, actually, is like not I don't need to say, wow, at AFRY we're so good, we're amazing, you should join us and so on. No, it's like I'm here, I'm welcoming you as a guest, we share our thoughts, and then I'm doing my urban planning projects, and people, I think people are smart enough to see like actions, you know. And I think as soon as even me as a listener listening to other podcasts, as soon as I hear a kind of like there is like a clear selling here, you know, a clear marketing here, I say, oh, this is too commercial, I stop listening to it. So there is like, it should be a very like a balance.
Yeah, and I'm also very skeptical towards the sort of standardized programmatic podcast advertising that is out there. It's just like suddenly it interrupts you in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah.
Go to this hamburger chain. Like, what we were just talking about
sustainable food
trauma or sustainable food tech. So I have sort of tried to refrain from all that kind of monetization.
That's really good.
Because that's not where the money comes from.
I think it's not worth it as well.
No.
In relation to the aim of your podcast and what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I've been struggling with this for a while, because I've thought for the first few years, I thought that this was a podcast for everybody. Everybody should listen to this. Why aren't they? You know, how can I get my numbers up so advertisers will contact me and want to pay me? And then I eventually realized that this is not a consumer wide range podcast. This is a very specific business to business platform. So I can only approach business to business companies, and for them I have a perfect audience, because I have decision makers and consultants and tech people and sustainability people. So when I shifted that mindset, I was more confident in approaching companies with sponsorship deals, and so now I've gotten started with that. So I have a few coming, and I mean, it's the first time I can actually capitalize on the podcast itself.
That's
after
great.
5 years.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
Dream come true.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
So who is your target audience? Who is listening to your podcast?
From what I can guess and see on
numbers,
LinkedIn, well, numbers is more like, they live in urban areas and they are between 35 and 59 and slightly more men than women.
More like geographical also.
Yeah.
From which country, city,
but I mean,
platform.
the podcast statistics are very shallow and
Mm.
difficult to know what to do with, really. And I always feel like I feel like, I mean, I studied marketing when I was young, and I've been working in this field for quite some time, and I'm so sick of target groups.
Okay, tell me. This is interesting. Like, how do you mean?
Because everyone wants to know, like, what's your target group, who is your audience. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. If it's just men, white men in urban areas,
yeah.
I don't want to only target them. I want to
Mm.
target other people.
Mm.
So I think of it as the opposite way.
How do you think?
Like, if I notice that only this kind of person listens to the podcast,
Mm.
I will probably want to pivot to other areas, so I get other people to listen to
Mm.
the podcast.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes, good content, you can't really tell who's gonna like it or who's gonna find it valuable.
Mm.
So I don't like to put myself in that box,
Mm.
saying that this is for this guy,
Yeah.
this persona. I don't want it to be like that. I want everyone to find
Yeah.
value.
Yeah. But is it you do that because of your podcast is like a very, how to say, it's general, and people, even like civil society, can listen to it and get part
Yeah.
of it. It's not so technical. Or you do that because you want more numbers and listeners so you can like get more money. Or you do that because like, how to say, okay, let's stay with these two options.
No, I think it's more the first, that I want to. Um, uh, I mean, one aim with all this I'm doing is to democratize knowledge
Yeah.
and um, broaden the discussion about the future.
Mm.
Provide people with the tools and the vocabulary to
Mm.
talk about the future.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have the vocabulary, if we don't know what things are, what they mean, we can't really discuss them. That's sort of my
Like the main aim.
yeah, and that's my idea, at least.
Mm.
That's why I've written 2 books, very pedagogical, explaining in an
Mm.
accessible way to the readers what different concepts are that we're talking about when we talk about the future.
Yeah.
So the last book, which I wrote with Henrik Smolak, another podcaster, Under 15, we wrote it together, and we dived into 15 different topics, like what is AI,
Mm.
what is blockchain, what is edtech, what
Yeah.
is fintech. Described it in an accessible way, added some interviews with experts,
Mm.
and it turns out, I mean, older people love it because they don't have books like that.
No, it's a new way.
My mom doesn't go out to buy an AI book,
No.
but but when she gets like 10 pages written in a fun way,
And simple.
simple, accessible,
Yeah.
she sort of grasps it.
Mm. That's
So I
really
think
good.
that's really important, because that was our aim with that book. Like,
Yeah.
we have all these amazing insights and all this content and all these people.
Mm.
Why don't we gather it and try to package it so
Package
that
it in
people
a
can understand what we're talking about?
exactly, for the, not only for the experts but for the civil society. So like from what I understand from you is that you don't have like a target group within only experts. It's open to everyone, right? And this is the target group.
Yeah,
Like
it's-
everyone.
It doesn't seem very business minded to say that everyone is a target group, but yeah, I
No,
want,
but like in your mission for the podcast, it is everyone, literally.
more or less, yeah.
Yeah, like
I
who
want
are able
students.
to, yeah, like
Students can use it, teachers can use it, consultants use it when
Yeah.
they are researching for a new project.
Yeah.
Tech people use it because they want to know what other people are talking about, how
Mhm.
technology is converging in different ways.
But
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much.
I understand. Does this affect how you talk with your guests? Like you don't get so much technical because there are not expert listening to it, so you keep the conversation in a very basic way.
I try to do that. Yes.
Mm.
Try if you say a few if you use jargon or abbreviations, technical terms, I sometimes back up and say, and by that we mean X
they
and Y.
explain it.
Because I think I sometimes imagine, for example, my mom listening. I don't know. I don't think she's listening much now, but I know my dad was listening. Used to, at least.
Yeah, that's good.
And my mother-in-law, who just passed away, she was 80. She listened. She loved it. She read the books.
That's amazing.
She was really like, oh, there's so much
even
interesting.
Even if she was 80,
Yeah. So that's a good. I think that's a good aim to have in mind. Like, can everyone understand this? And I mean, some topics, obviously, if you're talking about blockchain with an expert in 1.5 hours, not everyone is going to be able to understand. But I think my strength is that I'm not a specialist in anything. I'm a generalist, so I get to ask the stupid questions for the listeners.
Yeah. Is it good to be like that? Instead of being like an expert in one topic and get so much pay?
We need both. But when I talked to David Epstein, who wrote Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World, I think it's called. It's an amazing book. It really speaks to me as a generalist.
Yeah.
But he found in his research that specialists are faster into the workplace. They get higher pay.
Yeah.
But they also sort of plateau, and they and the generalists are later bloomers.
Okay.
So the generalists can actually win in the end.
So you don't feel that, I don't have so much knowledge, and people like prefer somebody with like a nerd with so much expertise in one thing.
I think there are very niche expert podcasts for about just about anything.
Yeah.
And I think I have a role in not doing that. So as I said in the beginning, that it would have been smart to focus on one thing, one area.
Yeah,
probably
like save a lot of time and headache. This
is the food tech podcast.
Exactly.
But I am not wired that way. I think I get too bored and restless and feel restrained.
Yeah.
So I think for me it's just rewarding in welcoming all different kinds of topics and perspectives, because the future is so many things.
True. That's true.
You can sort of add whatever you like into the mix.
Yeah. So who do you invite?
When we talk about different perspectives, I mean, there are some podcasts that claim that we need to hear all the different perspectives. We have to invite a climate denier. We have to invite a racist to understand how he's thinking.
You mean at the same episode? No. Each one have their
different episodes.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think that's my mission. Of course, I want different perspectives, but I still want to keep it within the framework that I see as a sort of more or less desirable future. So that's why I don't want to give air to destructive forces or climate deniers. It doesn't have to be super optimistic all the time. We can talk about catastrophic risks or climate threat and everything, but I need it to be solution focused. And what can we do about this? Inequality is a big problem, yes. So how do you work with solving this? I mean, I want to lift people that are doing cool stuff, not just predicting the future, but actually creating the future.
So more like actions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in the beginning, I was more interested in predicting the future, inviting futurists, like how is it going to be in 2050?
What is Smart City?
And
I was doing this.
And after a while, I realized that no one knows anything anyway. The pandemic hit and the war came on, and nobody knew about this. So now I sort of took a step back, and I interview people that are doing cool stuff now that can be something in the future that
Yeah.
can create a ripple effect in some way.
Yeah. So more about like leaders taking actions and doing stuff, not only talking, predicting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because people are tired of,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course.
public speakers predicting forget all you knew
Yeah. Yeah.
in 2100, blah blah blah. It's like, you don't know that.
No.
And no one's going to prove you wrong either.
Exactly. How do you find them? How do you find your people?
It's a mix. I get a lot of tips, which
Mhm.
I sometimes follow up. I get many people on LinkedIn that I find interesting. Like, when people are sort of popping up in
Yeah.
the feed, like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm seeing more and more of this guy.
Yeah.
And I write a DM and
Mhm.
say, like, maybe you should, do something. Maybe you should come by. And most often they say yes. Almost never they say no.
Mm.
And no one gets anything from it. No one gets paid.
Yeah. Do you pay them?
No, never.
Mm. Mm.
So, and I think, of course, now I have like over 400 episodes, so it's easy to
Wow.
feel. It's easy to feel sort of honored because
To be part of your podcast.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had some really good names already in the beginning.
Like big names.
I started, the first episode was Mikael Dahlén, who's an economic professor in Sweden, very famous for his books and lectures. So when I had him on the first episode, others were like, "Oh,
This is big.
am I a part of this? Wow,
Ah.
that's nice."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a bit like hit the ground running in a way.
Yeah. It's also like I see it's a mix between very famous people and new people on the field.
Yeah. I mean, the most fun part is finding the anonymous people, like scientists and
Yeah,
innovators
yeah.
and some startup founder who's
Not
not
really,
famous at all,
yeah, not really well known yet.
who gets to speak about the
Yeah,
topic in
yeah.
1 hour. So that's I think that's what I'm most passionate about, lifting those people
Mm.
up to the same level.
But it's now after like, let's say, X numbers of episodes, you start also do that, because in the beginning you need some big names, right, to boost the podcast.
Yeah, but I think I've always had a pretty interesting mix of, could have be some industry expert, or could be a scientist, an author, futurist. But yeah, I think I still try to keep that mix. I mean, you need to have a famous name sometime, every
because
once in a while,
exactly
to keep the interest up.
yeah, because like it's also when I started this, I'm not, how to say, we are not like a TV show superstar, so people don't really know us so much, and you need like more famous people to boost it, like experts, and then you need to find the mix, because you give a voice to everyone, like people not experts, students, civil society, and then you have like the super very well-known expert, like to have this balance in the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's a fun mix to have.
Yeah, but then some people say, you are only looking at LinkedIn, let's say, apart from like you getting emails and so on. But there are some people, they are not on LinkedIn, but they are doing good stuff. So should everyone be on LinkedIn and talk about what they do? What do you think?
The short answer would be yes. I think more people should be on LinkedIn. I encourage students, like already when you're studying, just create your account, start connecting with people in your preferred industry, follow people that are interesting, send someone a DM saying, "Can I buy your coffee?" I think that's I think it's stupid not to. Really.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, of course, I have to look
from
on
other
places as well.
Yeah, for sure.
For example, I want more diversity, more ethnic diversity, which is why I need to find some people that can guide me in that direction. People that are not always visible on LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah.
So that's a constant struggle.
But the answer to my question is that yes, people should be on LinkedIn and publish what they do. Maybe they don't need to be so professional. Just it's enough with a picture and few sentences about what you're doing.
Yeah, and gradually start building your network, because
Yeah,
I think people are, if people are too convenient, like, yeah, I have my full-time job, so I don't need LinkedIn.
exactly.
And then you lose your full-time job and you have like 45 connections on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah.
It's like you have to create everything from scratch.
True.
I didn't used to like LinkedIn because I thought it was superficial and everyone was just patting each other's back.
Very corporate.
Yeah, very corporate and very braggy. But once I started using it more, I think it's very valuable to
That's
me.
very true.
I get so many updates on sustainable innovation and climate tech and investments and
Yeah.
amazing people doing cool stuff. So I use it every day
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I share the same story as yours. Like in the beginning, I was thinking like this is a very stupid platform. Like when I
Yeah.
was a student, I said no, I will never be there.
Yeah.
Then after when I graduated, I just created because like everyone told me, okay, put your CV there and so on. But now after using it for like 4 years, I see the value is that you get so much inspiration update from what other people doing. You get so much knowledge and tools that you can use in your work. You can also share back what you're doing, so you contribute to the knowledge. The network connection, that's how we met, me and you.
Yeah.
And also like the number of projects that you get from LinkedIn. Because like when you put what you're doing, and let's say you're doing a good job, uh, people see what you're doing and they need your skills. So they just write you, can you help us with this? Can we have a coffee? And then there is a project behind it. So it's like you lose the time. I don't say use, you invest the time on writing and putting up stuff. But the on the other side, you gain so much of knowledge, network, projects, and so on.
Hmm.
I just see it like it's a great thing that we have it.
Yeah, and it's still a nice atmosphere. People are encouraging each other.
Yeah.
And,
So a lot of like positive people there. It's not like Twitter, like it's always fight and
yeah, I don't use Twitter anymore.
no, I don't have Twitter because like this people on LinkedIn, many of them they are there to make a future, to contribute actions, knowledge. You know, everyone is positive and say like, okay, let's do this together instead of like uh, you're an idiot or this president is doing this or this country is going to the hell. You know.
Hmm.
So it's more like I like the atmosphere there as well.
Yeah, it feels like Twitter is the opposite in a way. uh, and that's why I feel uncomfortable with Twitter. It's like I don't know what's going to happen. I get a pulse just by looking at it.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this work? Why so he's retweeting this because he wants to say that it's bad.
Mm,
It's very rare to retweet something that you think is good. It's like, oh, look at this asshole, and you retweet something and you add some
yeah.
funny comment. So now we see that the left is da da da, or now the right has been da da da.
Yeah.
I think it's
I think it's toxic.
very toxic.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
And for me again, like the LinkedIn, the atmosphere there, people putting projects. It's professionals to be honest. Professional to be honest. Like you see project linked to tool, you ask, you get help. It's like more. I see more positive people there, and this is what I like actually. So for all the listeners, like you should really be on LinkedIn and just start. You don't need to publish papers and articles. No one is like really doing it. Like just start, put what you're doing in a very simple way, and this is it.
Yeah, and also what I encourage young people or students to do is, if you have a passion for something, if you
Yeah.
have one topic that you're like, I really think electric boats are cool.
Yeah.
Like start an Instagram account or start a newsletter on LinkedIn or whatever.
Yeah.
Just nurture that passion. If you post once a week or twice a week on Instagram, it all has to do with electric boats. I mean, eventually you will become an expert. we'll be like, yeah, let's talk to this electric boats guy because he is really nerdy about this.
Yeah.
And you will become the expert
Mm.
after a few years.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me when I was writing a travel blog. It was in 2007, 8.
Mm.
I was getting paid a bit because I was editing it. I was an editor. But it was just a travel blog. News from the industry mixed with some travel tips, books. I posted maybe a couple of blog posts every day
Yeah.
for a few years. And from that, I became part of a sort of a travel journalist association. I got to freelance for some magazines. And then
Cool.
then someone asked me, we need a new editor for this industry magazine. Can you
Okay.
be editor in chief?
Wow.
And this magazine goes out to the entire travel industry.
Whoa.
That was in 2011, I think.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I mean, I can't do the, financial analysis of Norwegian's annual report, maybe, but I can have a freelancer do that.
Yeah.
And I can sort of set the tone and
The content.
yeah, and find the experts and sort of map out what kind of ecosystem this is. So yeah, so that's what I started doing then. It was on a freelance basis.
Yeah.
But suddenly I was, traveling to travel trade fairs in Ecuador and Cuba, and
Wow.
went to San Francisco. And from that, I could, freelance for other travel magazines as well. So
Yeah.
it all started with the blog, really.
Exactly. This is the gift of the social media, is that you have platforms for free. You can put your passion there, and by time, if you really focus on it, by time you get project, you get into communities, and you get also paid for that, and so on. So it's about like just starting it, just start doing it, and
Yeah.
and also like people, what I am like seeing around, people think you need to be like very expert. You need to put a lot of information and so on. But what I see like the winning card is that you simplify the information and put it in a very simple way, because people, they don't have really time to read all these 250 pages of reports. At the same time, you put like the link to this big report, but it's about summarizing the information and just taking a sample of it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's how blogs started. Really, you wrote a short copy on something, maybe a photo and a link to some. So it was always very link based.
Mm-mm.
Like you read more here, or I really want to highlight this article that I read today. It could be really simple, but added up over time, it becomes an incredible resource.
Yeah.
And I think I see many similarities with the podcasting as in the blog world. That it starts from scratch, from underneath, from people doing their passion, and eventually companies find it and invest in the ecosystem, so it grows.
Yeah.
And now we see the same thing with the newsletters. Back to the blog perspective of recommending each other. Like X said in her newsletter, I want to highlight this, and she didn't like the book, but I like it. So I think newsletter is really interesting now. I just started it, but I have a couple of hundred great email addresses, and I know that what I write will be distributed directly to their inbox.
Yeah.
Instead of putting it out on a blog post, like maybe someone will find it.
It's more like you're closer to your community, let's say.
Yeah.
But what if, I mean, now we're talking about put your passion, work with your passion, put it on social media and so on. What if I don't know what is my passion? What should I do? Should I have a passion?
I don't think that, because many people think that passion and purpose and meaningfulness come from a strike from above in a way. But I think you can nurture this over time. You always find eventually something that you're gravitating towards,
Mhm.
even if it's knitting or taekwondo. Like, this is so much fun that I forget that I'm doing it, or I forget about time. Or I want to
Mm.
do it all the time. I want to play guitar whenever I get home from work.
Maybe eating popcorn.
Yeah, maybe a popcorn podcast would be
Yeah.
of interest. No, but I think, of course, not everyone has to uh, create niche media, but
Mm.
I think everyone can find something in their lives over time and try to nurture it so it becomes a passion.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't know that this was going to be my great passion, but once I got started, I was like, I want to put more and more eggs into this basket because this is
Mm.
so rewarding for me.
The podcast.
Yeah, and the podcast and everything that came from it.
Yeah.
So I've been taking one step at a time. Like, okay, I have a podcast. I'm doing 50 episodes. Can I do a public speak about the future? Yeah, probably. So I started telling people that I could do that, and eventually I got a gig. So I was a public speaker. Um, I should be able to write a book about my insights.
Mm.
Okay, so I started pitching a book, and then the pandemic came. So it became a book about the pandemic, about the future in the context of the
Yeah.
coronavirus. That was in 2020. So I was like, oh, so I've released a book.
Mm.
Great,
Mm.
I'm a published author, so I can start thinking about next book. Um, I could do more events probably.
Mm.
You know, I always try to keep one small goal in mind
Yeah.
instead of I didn't set out to build this amazing media house or ecosystem,
Mm.
but that's how it has evolved over time.
Mm. So it's about you working on what you think is cool and interesting and doing like small steps. And that's how you grow your passion.
Yeah, and I didn't think that. Well, I thought I could monetize more in the beginning, but that was
Mm.
more difficult than I thought. But then I created hundreds of episodes without any payment
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the foundation. This is just a
Mm.
platform. This is what I do for fun.
Yeah.
I do other work to be able to afford this.
Mm.
Um, so back to your question in the beginning, no, you shouldn't, quit your day job and just go for podcasting,
Mm.
but you should see where it takes you, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And so now I can start maybe saying no to clients that don't really align with my passion, and I can
Mm.
say yes to others.
Okay.
So that's sort of my goal,
Yeah.
finding the sort of ikigai
Yeah. Yeah.
the philosophy,
Exactly.
what you're good at, what you can make money from, what the world needs,
Mm.
and what's the fourth one?
I don't remember. There's one for. Yeah. Yeah. I had it once on the podcast. There is a girl. She's an urban planner, and in their company, they're also doing this, like the 4 different categories, and then they combine it together. But do people need to, let's say now it's good to find the passion because you get creative, you enjoy your life, maybe you make it more professional, you get paid for it, and so on. But do everyone needs to make something of their passion, like put it on social media, doing podcasts, blogging, vlogging, I don't know, like how to say, share it with the public, or not? Maybe
Um,
they just keep it for themselves and that's it.
I think it, of course, depends. I mean, there's a saying that you're not an artist if you don't present your art to the world.
Mm.
If it doesn't find an audience, it's not really creating art.
Mm.
I'm not sure about that. Of course, you can create amazing art for yourself. But in a way, many of these things, they happen um, in the connection with an audience, with a
Mm.
listener.
Mm.
I could be interviewing all these people for myself, for my own interest, for my joy.
Like having a coffee with them and that's it.
Sure, many people do that.
Also, yeah.
And it's great. But I feel like every time I can create something that brings value to someone else, even if it's just one person, I think I have to do that.
Yeah.
Same goes for art. I mean, I make music and it's very low key. No one listens to it, but still I have to put it out there so it exists. I think it has something to do with the awareness of mortality as well. Like, I'm not going to live forever. Should these songs or these texts, should they be in my drawer when I die?
Yeah.
That's a waste.
I understand.
So,
yeah, but you do music as well?
yeah.
What kind of music?
Yeah, I've been playing in bands since I was 15. Like
amazing.
Punk bands, hardcore bands, rock bands. And when I moved to Singapore to study, I started singing in a local band in Singapore.
That's cool.
So they were jamming in the rehearsal studio, and they put in an ad in music magazine. So I responded, and we had coffee, and they needed a singer.
Yeah,
so suddenly I was fronting a Singaporean band. So I was doing business studies during day, and I was recording an album during night.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we released an album there, and we played live, and went on radio shows. And
wow, amazing.
But it was a very short time. It was like 1.5 years. Then after I graduated, I had done 1 semester in Malaysia. There was 2 semesters in Singapore, 1 semester in Malaysia, in Penang. And after that, the towers fell. So the whole job market was very different. Everyone just went home and started working at cafes, basically. So because there were no jobs. And from that point, I started studying again. I started sociology, media, communication studies. And I started playing in a Stockholm-based garage rock band for a few years.
Yeah.
Called the Flare Up.
But now you're doing music, like mixing music? Or?
Oh, since the kids came, I've been doing more like singer-songwriter stuff myself.
Okay.
Just me and my guitar.
Yeah. That's very cool. And about the
it's meditative.
Yeah.
It's like my way of
getting energy or
just blocking everything out.
True. And about the point of sharing like your passion, I started this podcast before I started this, I had coffees with experts because I graduated, then I was working as a consultant. And it was like, you have 8 hours, you cannot do so much. You need just to focus on project and deliver, and that's it. And when you go home, you're like kind of dead. You don't have so much energy. And I felt like I'm in a box and I can't explore what other people are doing. So as you mentioned, I wrote on LinkedIn like architect or planner. And then I wrote to people, can we have a coffee? I just graduated. I like what you do. And I want some advice from you. So we had a coffee and we talked and so on. So I did a lot of this and very interesting talks in each one of them. So, but it was only for myself. Then I was thinking, then I went to work and I listened to my colleagues. They say, I would love to get more information or knowledge about this topic. I would love to understand how people worked with like traffic engineering. And for me, like, okay, yesterday I had a coffee with this guy. He's a traffic engineer.
Yeah, you should meet him. And have a coffee. It's like
and then I'd be like, but like it's a way of sharing knowledge and inspire people, instead of keeping it only for me. So maybe I get smarter and I work in one project and I make city for people, like I fix this street. But what if, let's say, 100 people listen to the same guy, became smarter and work on 100 street? Then we can achieve this city for people or sustainable city. And that's how it come, like from collaboration and meeting and sharing, like we can be more innovative. And this is like the point of sharing what you care about, because there are other people care about the same thing. And if you exchange knowledge and share with each other, then like all the 10 will be good in what you're doing. And that's a way of making a better future, no?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just one person, that's
It's enough
still
with,
makes sense.
it's exactly, it's also enough with the one person. Maybe you don't need 10,000 people to listen to you, to read your blog. Maybe one person can do the change, and this is a change, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from your talks with people, from your career, how do you imagine future?
Well, it depends on what we define, how we define future. But
How do you define a future?
well, I tend to, like I said, I tend to envision a future that I would like to see.
Mm.
Some people say that we need to consider real dystopias as well, but of course, it might be productive to do that because you know where you don't want to go. Um, but I see us moving towards you know an electrified, sustainable society where industries are more circular, even regenerative, where the food system has healed, where there's an abundance of clean energy, where people can live longer, healthier lives, um, hopefully happier, more productive, more creative, um, more passionate, empathetic, um, more inclusive, less polarized. Um, I have to believe that such a future can exist.
Mm.
And I have to believe that we all can work towards something like that.
Mm.
Because I don't think many people would say that I don't want that future.
No, it's like a dream scenario, no? Everyone is happy, everyone is
Yeah, of course.
feeling good,
No, I
planet
don't.
is doing good.
I have to maybe point out that I don't necessarily believe in utopias, but I think it's good to imagine what a utopia would look like. What do I want?
Mm.
What do we want for our future? And maybe you can backtrace from that or backcast.
How
Like,
do we achieve this?
yeah, what kind of stepping stones or what short term goals can we set up in
Mm.
order to reach a long term goal?
Mm.
And I think this kind of visionary thinking or um, imaginary is often lacking from the political discussion. There's a lot of here and now
Mm.
problems.
Mm.
Like we need to tackle gang violence, so we hire more cops.
Mm.
When evidence suggests that that's not really
The
the
solution.
solution to the problem, just a band aid. So I rarely hear politicians talking about what they want. What kind of future do they see? Maybe it's not so different from the different political perspectives. After all,
Mm.
I don't think anyone says, "I want to see a future where fossil fuel is still predominant after 100 years, and we have a polarized society where people hate each other, and everything is a competition." I think we've been already been through that, and we
Mm.
sort of have realized that that's not the way to go. We have moved to the top of the mountain when it comes to humanity. We are at a great place in many ways, but we need to continue with the planet in mind, obviously, ecosystems, while in improving um, human lives as well. And I think that's not a contradiction at all.
Mm.
I think it goes well hand in hand.
Yeah. But this is like the future that you believe in. But based on what you hear from your guest, are we heading toward this future, or what are the challenges that we are facing?
Um,
I know it's a very big question, but maybe you can take some of the industries and tell us maybe like here this is the challenge when it comes to food, when it comes to tech, when it comes to mobility.
yeah, I think from what I gather from my guests,
Mhm.
I believe everyone wants to move towards a future like this,
Yeah,
and I think in many ways we are moving in the right
moving.
direction, even if it seems to move slowly in a way, or in many areas. Um, but I think sometimes people that are thinking a lot about the future, they are quite restless because they know that things could move faster.
Mhm.
That's what I realized when I talked to futurists in the beginning. Like I thought they would, thought they were going to be more optimistic about the world,
Okay.
but they were like, since they are since they've been talking and thinking about the future so much, they realized that well, the systems we have now
Mhm.
are not optimal.
Okay.
Um, Food system, political system, healthcare system, transportation. Um, it's great. It's like um, it's like you sometimes say about liberal democracy that it's the less bad, or it's the least bad system we
Mm.
can come up with at the moment. But there's so many opportunities moving ahead, and of course the main obstacles or challenges are, of course, climate change. That would put an enormous strain on societies, on cities.
From what you hear from your guest, are we going to do something or no? We are heading toward like a planet that is destroyed by us.
No, I don't use the word destroyed. But I think we have to admit that it's already happening. So
Exactly.
we have to still mitigate and reduce emissions, everything like that. But we also have to build resilience in our societies and in our cities so that we are prepared when the consequences of climate change are more apparent.
Mm.
Like I saw the other day from Tokyo, where they're building huge underground tunnels so that they won't be affected by flooding.
Mm.
I don't know if they ever have been affected by flooding, but they are sort of taking precautions. And that's what I think we should introduce in every aspect that we do.
Mm.
Um, think of how can we reduce and work sustainably, but also accepting that things are going to change and we have to adapt to that.
Mm. So, like, are when you talk with experts, are we going to fail in saving and like with this 1.5 degree? Or they say no, it's going to be good. We're gonna survive. We're gonna make it.
Um, the people I talk to are more optimistic. Uh, they believe that we can actually solve this.
Mm.
If it's 1.5 or 2, I have no
Yeah.
idea. Um, I think things take time. We can't just shut down all fossil fuel production now. Um, it's not you know possible.
Mm. Mm.
Um, there has to be a transition period, and the transition period may be not only the 2020s, it could be also 2030s or 2040s. It's not a finish line. I mean, many people get sort of stuck with the notion that 2030 development goals, 1.5, like we have strict deadlines. I
Mm.
don't really see it that way. I see that there will be probably catastrophic consequences in some areas of the world, but we will still move in the right direction as a whole.
Mm. 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 So you see, climate as a climate change is a big challenge. What are like some main other challenges that we have to face?
Well, of course, the the most dangerous thing right now is probably geopolitical tensions, and it's apparent that these relationships can be very easily triggered by single actions from one person. I'm talking now about, for example, Turkey and NATO and Sweden, Finland. It's very fragile. US, China, very fragile. But I hope that we have such a strong fundament to build upon that nobody will have an interest in going to war with the other country. But we thought like that about Russia as well. So,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know, but yeah, global collaboration is definitely one of the most important things. And I mean, that trickles down to polarization, xenophobia, right or wrong, red and blue. I think that kind of binary thinking, black and white, is not very constructive. I think that's why I also see it as a mission to provide more perspectives and more nuances to the palette, because we can't just, I mean, basically any topic. And you can't say that this is right, this is wrong. Because someone would always say, well, science suggests that this is actually, and maybe there's a middle way in all of these instances. And I think for me, a lot of it comes down to people losing hope in the future. So that's also a very important mission for me, to provide examples of solutions and visionary thinking so that people can have slightly more hope about the future, so they can feel more optimistic about doing stuff. Because the whole rhetoric of like, the world is going to end anyway, like, no, it won't.
It's like what media is selling, like it's pandemic, now it's war, inflation. Yeah, like
electricity bills are
yeah,
high.
like the future is dark. No.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always been like that in a way, but the negativity and the fear from the news media has increased dramatically over time, while we at the same time are bombarded with the messages and push notifications and Twitter. So naturally, if we marinate our brain in this toxic slush for 5, 6, 7 hours each day, of course we're going to think the world is dangerous and dark, and that there's basically no future at all. My life is great, but I see from what I hear, it's all going to hell.
But how can we rethink the future? Like, how can we be more positive? Any advice instead of just listening to media and believing in is that the end is near?
Just make a conscious action in limiting the news feed and balancing it with other types of sources and insights, and see how it feels. I think that was revelatory for me when I realized I don't have to read the newspaper every morning. I only get depressed. It takes time. I get stressed because I didn't get to finish it. I was like, what if I just don't read it at all? I'll stop subscribing to it. Spend more time with my kids. You know, I don't have to know everything. What's happened yesterday? I don't know. I think we should have, I mean, I think it's beneficial for everyone to take a step back and see a bigger picture. Is this really a trend, or is it just something that happened to happen twice in a month? Is the society more violent, or is it just in some particular groups or areas? Is it dangerous to go outside at night, or is it in fact far less dangerous than it used to be? I think we should question those narratives and put less emphasis on dramatic um, occurrences, because the news is the most dramatic things that have happened in the past 24 hours, the worst stuff. And it's when we become more global and connected, we get the worst stuff from the past hour.
Yeah, from each country.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do with it.
Now you become more like negative and afraid of future, and the way you think is more like you want just to stay in your box and you don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I think, especially for young people, I believe that we have to teach them to see the incredible amount of solutions and companies out there that are doing things right now and working towards a better future. So that's why I really like giving talks to schools. I've done just one high school, a couple of universities, but yeah, I think that's really rewarding. It's really important.
Yeah. And you mentioned that one of your missions here in life is to share other solutions in your podcast, to show that the future is not so dark as how we maybe feel or believe in it and so on. Can you share with me like some of interesting solution you heard about from your talks with people, like or progress that we are doing, let's say in food or I don't know, other?
I think every small solution or invention or startup is a piece of the puzzle. Right now, a lot has to do with energy, of course, making the society more energy efficient, more decentralized in a way, more renewable. So all those solutions, I think, are really important tools in the toolbox. When it comes to AI, I think we only been scratching the surface of what we can achieve by creating more efficient transportation. When we talk about smart cities, like how we can automate stuff like air quality, food quality, urban farming, preventing gas leaks, fires, everything would be, and that's why the convergence of technologies are so interesting. Like we have all this big data, we have AI that can thrive from big data, we have blockchain technologies that can create trust. We have 3D printing. We have VR and AR that can provide new layers of information. Internet of Things that can provide us with the data that we need for the whole ecosystem. So that's why I think it's really cool if you back out and see how the technologies affect each other and how the different startups and companies can fit into that sort of puzzle or that ecosystem. So I have a difficult time, as you can tell, I have a difficult time highlighting one or two.
I understand,
but I think it's very rewarding to see how it all fits together and that everyone is sort of moving in the same direction.
So there are things happening. There are solutions coming, right?
Yes. They might not be a silver bullet solution, a panacea,
but together
solution to everything. Yeah, that's why I think it's important to keep in mind. Every time you share something about a new climate solution, some guy will say, well, do you know how expensive that is?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the same with the all new innovation. Like, oh, it's so expensive, we cannot afford it.
Everything was expensive.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
So, I mean, solar power is the most cheap,
Technology.
energy production.
Exactly, technology. Yeah. That's true. But is it like, do you see there are a lot of like tech-related innovation, or more like, let's say, basic, old school, no tech solutions?
I think everything will need technology in one way or another. Even if it's just about connecting people or providing you with a better suited therapist, or providing you with better data from the food you're buying in the store. We cannot work without technology. So hopefully all these tech buzzwords will dissolve after a while, because everything is tech.
Yeah. And what do you think that urban planners should stop doing when they plan, when we, because I'm also an urban planner, when we plan future cities?
Stop doing. I think we should stop planning too much.
What do you mean?
I think if urban development is too detailed, like, yeah, I know exactly what's going to be everywhere, then you're not creating room or a space for the human creativity to thrive. I think we see that those examples when you build new city areas from scratch, it takes a lot of time before it becomes a vivid place.
Or livable?
Yeah. And it's sort of, we forgot that people should maybe do something during nighttime when all the offices are closed. It's just a dark, empty square. So plan for all the different times and seasons, of course. And of course, and I think less detail, more flexibility, adaptability, resilience. And we also have to plan for a much older community. Because I've been really interested in demographics lately, and it's kind of fascinating to see how few children we are making today
in Sweden.
In most of the Western countries.
Okay.
I would say most industrialized nations are around a replacement rate or below. Singapore, they have 1 child per woman, and the replacement rate is 2.1.
What does it mean, replacement rate?
Well, for 2 people, they need 2 kids.
To take their
point 1, because some shit happens. But if you have 2.1, the population will stay stable over time. But most countries are dropping below that, which means that they will have an older population, and they will eventually decline. So when people talk about the population explosion and we're going to be too many people on Earth, that's mainly sub-Saharan Africa, where people still are having 5-6 kids in many countries.
Yeah.
So if you wanna stop the population explosion, it's about helping out in sub-Saharan Africa to provide more education, healthcare, sanitation, etc. Because most people, once they get more developed and educated and healthy, they do not want 5 or 6 kids. They want 2. And in Western countries, they don't even want 2. I mean, Italy and Spain are declining. South Korea, China is having a problem. And at the same time, we live longer than ever.
Yeah.
So there will be huge amounts of really, really old people
Yeah.
and very few kids,
Mm.
which, I mean, is an interesting challenge for urban planners, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we continue, I have a question. Do you believe that, okay, the machine and AI will take our jobs? So now we are fine if we are not being so many in a population. I mean, like, or no, you don't believe in this very super futuristic ideas that, oh, the machine and AI will replace us, so we don't need to work. Is it something that going to happen like within the 10 years? And
Well, as we see now with the generative AI, with from OpenAI and Midjourney and all those actors, um, we were really taken by surprise, many of us, that even creative works and um, stuff that we thought was very difficult to replicate for an AI was in fact quite easy.
Mhm.
So for me as a content producer, copywriter,
Mm.
sure, I will definitely lose out to AI when it comes to generic corporate text,
Yeah.
which is why I think that I see it as a challenge. I need to find my own personality even more.
And creativity.
Yeah, and use my personal DNA in my texts so
Mm.
that they're non-replicable. Um, but yeah, people are gonna struggle with this, of course. Artists are upset, illustrators, photographers,
Ah,
even movies will soon be able to be created from prompts.
wow.
Um, so I think we will find lots of new jobs
Mm.
thanks to AI, but it will also be a perhaps difficult time for many people when they lose their jobs.
Mm.
I mean, the best case scenario is that we don't lose jobs, we lose tasks.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do the bookkeeping in the same way I used to
Mm.
because the AI can sort it for me. The sustainability report is 10 times faster because we have the data and AI
To
can
package.
create a package around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Sort of time consuming mundane tasks,
Mm.
processes, administration, the kind of content that just took time but wasn't really
Yeah.
adding super value.
Mm.
All those tasks will become much, much faster now.
Mm.
Um, will people lose their jobs? Well, some people probably. If you're not, if you don't have your DNA or
Mm.
your
Mm.
value creation abilities, maybe you are more prone to lose your job.
Yeah. So back to cities, what are the things that we should think about when we plan cities? Or yeah, things maybe we should stop to, things we should start to, as you mentioned, like think about the different groups, seniors as well when you plan cities.
Yeah, exactly. Older population,
Yeah.
more resilience towards climate change, flooding, drought. Also, heat is a huge topic now. I know in urban planning, how can you create city areas where we can mitigate the negative consequences from heat.
Mm.
And I think using nature more, more greenery, more trees inside the city centers is probably a very quick quick fix for that
Mm.
because it absorbs heat, it gives shade, um, it it's a coal sink as well. Um, we should focus more on biodiversity and um, I mean, I don't think that beehives and tree gardens should be some sort of um, fun projects on the side. I think they should be implemented
Mm.
in a much more aggressive way because it's such an amazing thing to be able to do. combined with solar panels, vertical farming. These are so many things that we can add to our cities if we manage to get rid of the cars more.
Mm.
So build cities for humans,
Mm.
not the cars.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the challenge for everyone right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, how fast will the transition be? How many cars do we actually need? Do we need people driving around in Stockholm when there are much more convenient ways to get across?
Mm.
Maybe we only need service and delivery vehicles, and those can be automated or
Mm.
self-driving and electrical. So I don't think we anytime soon will see huge fleets of automated vehicles or self-driving vehicles, autonomous vehicles, sorry, with people just relaxing, because I think the cultural and legislative challenges are so big. But in deliveries and other services, definitely.
Mm.
So how do we build cities around that future? So more human-centered, more green, more electrified. Use the power of sensors and Internet of Things to automate processes behind the scenes. Yeah, and I think cities are so amazing and so interesting because it's such an efficient use of resources if you do it well.
Mm.
You can't say that everyone should live in the countryside and all grow their own food, because that would be unsustainable
Mm.
if everyone did that.
Yeah.
Now, so and also think that cities and municipalities can move faster than nations or blocks, because they can say, like, we can't wait for the legislation to change. We can move faster
Mm.
because we want to be the most sustainable
Mm.
city in our area, and that can be benchmarked to other cities in the world. And those kind of collaborations between mayors and municipalities, I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. What makes you sad in your city?
Was homelessness, of course, that we have all these amazing opportunities and privileges, and we still can't fix homelessness. And of course, lack of integration, inequality is saddening. The housing market in Stockholm is very saddening.
Mm.
As a young person, it's almost impossible to buy, and it's impossible to rent. So what do? You rent secondhand, and suddenly you're in your 30s. Or I have
Mm.
friends now in the 40s renting a 2-bedroom apartment secondhand.
Yeah.
So that needs to change. Maybe also that sector needs more flexibility. I get sad when new projects get appealed all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so it takes several years more than it should.
Mm. Yeah.
That must be a frustration in your job.
It's always like we say like, okay, it's to 2030, and suddenly, we have some problems. Okay, 2050.
Hmm.
You know.
And it's probably a nice democratic function that you can actually appeal something
Mm.
and question it.
Yeah.
But maybe we should get rid of that before we start the project, or before we decide on something, because now it's like, yeah, it's decided, it's going to be a tunnel here.
Mm.
And then a year later, no, someone appealed, so we have to wait 6 more months, and then no, it got turned down. Like, why don't just make a decision and go for it.
Mm.
Sometimes I would like that.
Mm.
What else? What do I get sad about? I get sad when I see dead areas in the cities where, there's such potential, but no one has been doing anything. It's just like, just a miscalculation in the planning process. Like, why is this just a dark square somewhere? I mean, for example, next to the central station in Stockholm. Like, why is nothing happening here? It's just a breeding ground for shady people to hang around instead of producing a beautiful fountain or garden or market or something.
Yeah.
So, but what I love about cities is not perfect planning. I mean, obviously, I've been living in Singapore. That's a bit too planned for my taste. And then you have Bangkok, which is very chaotic. So my favorite city is actually the one in the middle, Kuala Lumpur. I think that's a beautiful combination of progress and chaos.
Yeah.
With all the different religions and food stalls, huge shopping centers, skyscrapers, a guy on the street doing fried rice. I think that atmosphere is
more like the livable atmosphere from a different scale people.
Yeah, and in Sweden it would be like, do you really have permission to sell fried rice on the street? It would take a year to get the permission, and it would cost money. No one could be bothered to do it.
I understand.
I think I would like to see a more flexible and open regulatory framework for people to be able to do stuff like food trucks. It was too complicated, the process, the cost. So eventually, I mean, 7 out of 10 food trucks just disappeared because
they don't want more
bothered.
Headache. Yeah. Interesting reflections, and I will take it with me as well. The listeners also. I'm very happy that you're sharing it with us. So now we are in the last section of this episode. It's going to be more about you.
Oh.
So if you can choose to be something else than being a human, what will you choose to be and why?
When we talk about animals, I would probably say bird because I would like to have that kind of freedom.
Okay.
But if we're talking about an object, it'd probably be like, I'm imagining this old school boombox from the 80s. And I would follow people around and play their favorite, their soundtrack to their day. That would be kind of cool. So it would always be music according to the situation that I choose. So I'm kind of an ever-present DJ in a way.
Yeah. Why do you want to do that?
I think I've always been like that. Music is such a big part of my life, and I think I've always enjoyed presenting new music and finding the right tunes for the right right atmosphere, right situation. I don't always succeed, but now when the kids are growing up, becoming more interested, it's like re-sparking my joy. Of presenting music.
How many kids do you have?
3.
Wow.
So yeah, they're 13, 11, and 6. So the 2 oldest have they go to a music school. So they have music 5 hours a week, and they have they form bands in the class, and they have band practice, and they perform at the end of the semester.
Christian, you're doing many projects. You're doing podcasts and other stuff and music, and you have a family, you have 3 kids. How do you find the work-life balance?
It used to be that I didn't. I work a lot of late nights, editing podcasts, for example. But I think that's also quite meditative for me. I like to put the work aside and then like, oh, let's just edit this episode. That would be nice. I think it's nice to go into that bubble for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now recently I've had less assignments that are short and fast, and I need to act on something immediately.
Like deliveries.
Or I need to reply at night for emails. Now it's a bit more long term, those collaborations I have, so I can spend more time shutting off during nights, spend time with my family, and then of course a few nights a week I will go into my cave and do late night work.
Yeah. So there is no really clear work life.
No,
It
because
depends. Like
me and my wife, we have a company together,
Mm.
and we had it since 2005. So it's always been a very unclear line between work and the rest of life.
Mm.
Because as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, you can't really say like, no, I'm not going to respond to emails because it's a weekend. Because if your clients want something from you, you will definitely respond. So it's difficult to switch off. Definitely.
Yeah. I see it's very interesting that you're having your company with your wife as a co-founder. Like
Yeah.
usually I hear like you need distance and so on, but is it fun to like what's the secret that you kept like both the company and your relationship?
Yeah. I think the secret is that we started doing other things, different things within the company. So we started out as an ad agency, basically doing like graphic design, websites, logos, business cards for small companies.
Yeah.
And we sat together, the same desk, doing the same stuff, and that was creating a bit of tension, I think. But then she started doing more like food stuff. She became a food stylist, wrote cookbooks, the recipes in magazines. I started working with journalism content. So we sort of abandoned the whole ad agency idea, and we focused on our own writing careers more.
Yeah.
So now she's a novel writer. She is gonna start her second novel now, and I do whatever I do. So and in the company description is like, yeah, we have everything from DJing to catering to book publishing, marketing, advertising.
Yeah.
So we just do our stuff, and we keep our company together.
Did you get married first or started the company first?
That's an interesting question, actually. We started the company first.
And then
And then we got married 2 years later. Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't really easy finding a job back then. And we had used up all our credits or study loans. So we were like, what should we do? I mean, your uncle wanted a website. Yeah. And your cousin wanted a logo. And maybe we should freelance. We have to be able to, invoice.
Yeah.
So it was more of out of necessity we started the company. It was not a grand business plan, but we realized that we needed something, and why not an agency for and it's called Back Pockets. It's an agency you can fit in your back pocket. We don't have any overhead costs. We work from home.
Yeah.
You don't only pay what we produce. Nothing else.
Yeah.
No fancy meetings, conferences. So I think it was a pretty good idea at the beginning.
Cool. So how is your what is your daily routine? When do you wake up? What do you do, and so on? Like what? Tell us about your 24 hours.
Well, wake up at 7. Get the kids to school. They usually start at 2 or 3 different times, so can be a bit hectic. I walk with the 6-year-old to his school. Then suddenly I can realize I can stand out on the street. It's 8:20. So yeah, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Do I want to go to my office. We have an office space, an old shop that we took over 5 years ago. That's where I record the podcasts. That's where we do lots of writing, and we have parties there. It's like a second living room. Do I want to sit there for a few hours, or do I sit at a cafe for a few hours, write or edit? I try to minimize meetings and conference calls. I'd rather meet people in person if I have to. I have 2 or 3 guests coming into the studio each week to do interviews, and it's a pretty stable and harmonious life at the moment, actually.
What happened after work? Like, let's say after 5.
Maybe it's age, but I need to sleep after work. I have a procedure, I have a ritual. Like, I come home and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to go to bed. So I go lay down, I put the timer on 25 minutes. I put on the exact same record every day.
Yeah.
So it's like Pavlov's.
Like you take a nap, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's very Pavlov, when I hear the first 1, 2, 3 songs, I drift away. And then I wake up after 20, 25 minutes. Or maybe I've been sleeping properly for about 10, 15. But
yeah.
And then it's the same song that comes on that I know I'm waking up to. And then I'm set for the evening. So I sort of reboot myself. And someone said, well, haven't you been more tired after COVID and the vaccines and everything? I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I thought that was just me getting older. I don't know.
Very interesting. So we have 2 questions left.
Yeah.
The first one is about you giving 3 takeaway messages to our listeners.
Wow, let's see if I thought of something. Read. Well, my first one is definitely try to appreciate the world more. Like I'm talking about urban development. It's like, what are the wonders of the city, of my environment? Of course, the wonders of nature, but also what kind of engineering goes into creating this amazing system that we live in. How did people build this stuff? I think that's a kind of awe that I think we can need once in a while. Try to limit the news media loop. Of course, turn off push notifications. That's a no-brainer. Try not to engage your brain too much with stuff that you cannot do anything about. Try to engage your brain with stuff that you actually can do stuff about, and maybe find out where you can help. Maybe there are brilliant, sustainable companies that are looking for exactly your kind of profile. Maybe you shouldn't work in an environment that's both not fulfilling for you and not making any positive progress for the planet. I think people are stuck in terrible jobs very often. Even if it's, if it's a personal feeling, or if it's a feeling of why do I work for them? What do they do? Are they working towards a more sustainable world, or are they just creating stuff, just producing stuff? So I think more people will start reflecting on that. I think we did during COVID and after, but I think still we have to realize that we have a choice, and where we work is such a huge choice for what we contribute to. Was that 2?
Yeah. One more.
Start practicing listening more than just talking. Stop interrupting. Listen to what people have to say, and listen to them compassionately, and really try to understand where they're coming from, and let them finish. Because there's so many people that you only scratch the surface with. There's so many stories and adventures and traumas that can be unlocked if you just take the time, ask questions, and listen.
So true. And the last question in this episode is going to be you asking it to us. So what is your question to us?
My question to the listeners?
Yeah.
Well, the question is, how can we collaborate even more across sectors, across industries, across boundaries, geographical or otherwise, to really move forward in the way that we want to? What can I bring to the table? What do you have that can be a fit? It doesn't have to be a new company. It can be a network. It can be a chat group or discussion room, whatever it is. I think we need more collaboration in all aspects of society.
Good question. Christian, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all your experience with us. I love your podcast. I told you this many times, and I will tell you, like, I really enjoy your podcast, and I encourage you to keep doing it. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mustafa.